Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Maeve, and today we're going to go over some build cheats. And before we get started on that, I do have one thing from my last tutorial video that I forgot to go over. So if you watched the last video, it was all about the gallery and the library. And there is one thing about the gallery and the library that's very useful that I forgot to show you. So let's get into that before we get started on the build cheats. So we're in the gallery right now, but what I'm about to show you, you can use it in the gallery or in your library, either way. So like for instance, let's take a look at this household. So you see here, it lists all the packs that are used in this household. But what you may not know is that if you click the pack icon, you can see, of course, the pack information here. And these are all the Create a Sim items that are included in the pack. And these are all the build mode items that are included in this pack. But there's also a button here that says show used items. And if you click on that, it'll show you only the items from this pack that were used in this household. And so if we go back, let's find a build as an example. Maybe this one. And so you can see here, these are all the packs that were used in this build. And see, I don't have Dream Home Decorator yet, but I can click this and I can go to show used items. And now I can see all the items that were used in this build from this pack. And I can decide whether or not I would want to download this build anyway. And so in the case of this build, a lot of these items are pretty necessary. You've got a door here and we've got some plumbing and a bed. So some of these, and see, even like a sectional couch was used. So some of these items are pretty indispensable to the build, and it's a lot that I would have to try and replace with items that I already own. So I might not want to download this build until I buy the Dream Home Decorator pack. And see, it works in your library too. So here's my library, and for instance, here's a test sim that I made for another game that I was playing. But I can click any pack here and look at show used items, and it looks like she's using these shoes in one of her outfits. And then another example would be if I want to go to my lots. So this is my Heart of Glass build, and I really meant to make this build only use the base game and spa day, but then I used Eco Lifestyle to put these doors into it, which then I sized down using the tool mod, and we'll talk about the tool mod another time. But in order to make the walls underneath my glass roofs disappear, I had to fill up those wall spaces with large doors, and these doors are very large, so these were the ones that I used. And then I used the tool mod to size them down until they were completely invisible and really impossible to interact with. So even if you go into build mode, there's really no way to manipulate these doors. So it really should have been just base game and spa day. That was my intention, but I didn't realize really as I was building what I was doing, and I ended up with these Eco Lifestyle doors in the build, and now it's impossible for me to change it. But what I didn't realize is that I also used some items from Perfect Patio and from Dine Out. So if you don't have Dine Out and you don't have Perfect Patio, but you do have Spa Day and Eco Lifestyle, you may still want to download this build. So you would just click on Dine Out and go to show used items, and it's just this one railing that I used. So you could just replace that railing with a different one from a pack that you do own. There's probably one from Spa Day that you could use, and I actually used this railing thinking that it was from Spa Day. And then same for Perfect Patio. You can click on this, go to show used items, and it's just one little plant. So if you don't mind having one little plant missing from this build, then you don't really need Perfect Patio to download it. So I think that's really useful. You know, anytime you're not sure about the packs that you don't own, just click those packs that you don't own and go to show used items and see what you're going to be missing from that build. If you go ahead and download it and place replace it anyway, because sometimes chances are you're gonna find builds that technically use packs that you don't own, but if those items are not really indispensable, you know, if you think you could live without them, then go ahead and download that build anyway and see if, you know, if it's only a couple of items, maybe you can just replace them with something else from a pack that you do own, or even from the base game. So that's just one little thing that I wanted to go over from the last tutorial that I forgot to include. But as I said, this tutorial is going to be all about build cheats, and we're going to kind of go in order by the order that it's smartest to enter the cheats if you're using all of them, but also the order of how commonly used these cheats are, because some cheats are used a lot more often by people than others. So the very first thing that I want to show you is how we pull up what's called the cheat console. And that sounds really fancy, but really the cheat console is just a white text box that shows up in your upper left-hand corner. And in order to make that visible and interactable, all you're going to do is press Control, Shift, and C at the same time. And you see that this window has now come up on my screen, and it is blocked by my frame rate indicator. I do apologize for that. Since you're not going to be able to see the first few letters or characters of a cheat that I enter in, I'm actually going to have these cheat codes flash up on the screen as I'm entering them, so don't worry about not being able to see what's in that cheat console bar. So this is the cheat console, and the first cheat that we're going to go over is testing cheats on. So in order to enter this, you're going to type in testing cheats on. And then it's going to come up with a larger text box, and it's going to show you a message that says cheats are enabled. So if you don't get that message that says cheats are enabled, that means you didn't type in the right code. And then to make the cheat console disappear, you're just going to press Control Shift C again, and it's going to disappear, and you can pull it back up anytime you want. So now that our testing cheats are enabled, one of the most useful things that we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to shift click on this mailbox here, and we're going to have some extra options here in our, what do you call this, our radial menu, I guess. So if you see this says set as head. This isn't really something that we use in building. It's not really something we use at all, really. But sometimes people accidentally click it and they don't realize that they've done it, and then their sim has some weird object set as their head and they don't know why it happened and they don't know how to fix it. So I'm just going to cover this just in case you accidentally click this button. But if I click set as head, it's going to turn my sim's head into a giant mailbox. And so like his head is still over here, obviously, but if I have him walk over here, the mailbox is going to follow him wherever he goes. And so, of course, he doesn't mind. He doesn't even know, right? But what do you do once this has happened? And I'm going to show you, you can actually do this with any item on your lot. So I can set his head as this chair, you know, I can set it as this decoration right here. And so in order to... So in order to get rid of this, you're just going to shift click on your sim and you're going to look for reset object, and in parentheses it's going to say debug. And if you click that, it's going to make that object disappear. So that's all you have to do if you ever accidentally set an object as your sim's head. That's all you have to do to fix it. Another thing that I really love using testing cheats for, and this is probably the #1 thing that I use it for, when I'm building or when I'm filming cinematic shots of my build and I have a sim on the lot, a lot of times their needs will go down as I'm building. I don't want my Sims looking all grumpy whenever I'm filming cinematic shots of my build, and I also don't want them refusing to cooperate with me whenever I'm trying to test something that I've built. So in order to avoid all of that, you can shift click on your mailbox and you can go to alter needs, and then you have a whole lot of different options here. I like to do fill needs world. And then I like to do disable world needs decay. And this has applications for your gameplay, of course, too. If for any reason you just want to make sure that your townie Sims are just always happy and they don't have any bladder incidents or anything like that, you can always just disable world needs decay, and then you don't have to worry about any of that. What you'll also want to do, because your household Sims are separate from the world, basically. So even though I disabled world needs decay, my Sims needs can still decay. So you can go to alter needs and you can fill needs household, and you can alter needs disable household needs decay. And if you ever want to reverse this disable needs decay for either your household or for the world, you have those options over here too. So disable household needs decay, and reset object debug. Every object, if you shift click on it, is going to have that option. If any of your objects are ever like glitching, you might want to try that because it may help, although it won't always. So like in my legacy game, I had a refrigerator that had sprung a leak, and no matter how many times I told my Sim to fix it, she would just repair it. For like hours and hours she would be repairing it, but it would never be fixed. And it was interesting because her repair skill was going up the entire time. She gained multiple levels in mechanical skill, but the refrigerator was never repaired. And I tried reset object debug and that didn't help either. So I don't know what caused that. I had to just delete the refrigerator and buy a new one, which was very frustrating. But sometimes when your objects glitch, you can try reset object debug and it could help you. And then the other thing here on your mailbox is give Sim influence plus 15. If you don't have the eco lifestyle pack, then you're not going to have this option, because this whole influence mechanic is a part of the neighborhood action plans that are only found in the eco lifestyle expansion pack. Anyway, if you want to get a jump start on those neighborhood action plans, it's really not that difficult to, do the neighborhood action plans even without cheating. But if you want to cheat, this is one easy way to give your Sims some extra influence so that they can start voting right away instead of having to interact with a lot of townies first. So as I said, you can kind of click on any object and you have these two options, like literally just about, and see, we can make this counter dirty if we want to, which comes in handy if you're making like machinima, not just like cinematic tours of a build, but like a video featuring Sims that actually tells a story. You may have a need to have the counters dirty, and instead of having to have a Sim use that counter over and over to make it dirty, you can actually just shift click and make it dirty or make it clean. So you can do this to any of the counters. I wonder if you can do that like with plumbing. Let's see, make dirty. Yeah. And so I imagine you can do it with toilets too. There's probably like a lot of uses for this. So you can play around with like, shift clicking different objects to see what interactions you have available. But usually it's just going to be set as head or debug. There's very few items that you're going to be able to do anything else with. And then of course there's the Sims themselves. So if I shift click on my Sim, I'm going to have a lot of extra options here too. So I'm going to have give bucks, which is like another thing that's the feature of eco lifestyle. So again, if you don't have eco lifestyle, then you're not going to have that option. But this way I can give my Sim recycle bits and recycle pieces instead of having to get them through gameplay, because these are items that I don't believe you can actually order from the computer. Like a lot of the items, especially like upgrade parts, you can just have your Sim go to the computer and buy them. But I don't think that you can do that with these recycle bits and recycle pieces. You can also cheat your needs on an individual sim rather than doing that with the whole household. So you have disable need decay and enable need decay, and then you have make happy, which is, I don't think that's just the moodlet. I think that's also going to fulfill all of their needs, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. We have another eco lifestyle cheat here, cheat eco lifestyle NPC role behavior. So these are hidden traits that you can give to your sim, and you can also shift click on other sims, even townies, and you'll be able to also give them these hidden traits, and you'll have a lot of these same options for sims that are not in your household if you shift click on them. And let me just see if there's any sims around. Yeah, so like this guy over here, I can shift click on him and I can make him not married anymore if I want. I can have my sim automatically be married to him. I can give him recycle bits and recycle pieces. So I have all of these. I can even modify him and create a sim. So all these options and more are going to be available not only to your own sims, but also to any other sims that are nearby. But going back to our sim, we have cheat bowling. So we can make it so he never fails at bowling, or that he always throws trick shots at bowling. You can modify the sim and create a sim, which is really handy. You don't have to have a mirror or a dresser or anything. You can just click on the sim and modify them this way. Cheat sim info. So lock all motive decay, remove lifestyle, add sim preference, add lifestyle. So it looks like I can add lifestyles without having to like earn them, which is, I think, great for character development. So we can remove a lifestyle just as we could add one. We have lock all motive decay, which I'm pretty sure is gonna have to do with these needs here. I think when you look at the coding language in the game files, the needs are actually described as motives. And then you can add sim preference, and I'm not really sure what that does. I just clicked it and it didn't do anything that I could tell. Anyway, we have a university debug menu. Obviously, if you don't have the university pack, then you're not going to have this option, but I can enroll him in university just by shift clicking on him instead of having to like go to the computer or anything like that. We have, of course, again, the reset object debug, more choices. I can make him a plant sim. Create snowboarding video is probably dependent on whether or not you have snowy escape. Career gigs picker. So it looks like I can just like sign up for gigs here from this menu instead of having to like join a gig career and then like wait for these gigs to pop up on the randomized menu in gameplay. We have sunbathing options, so we can give our sim a tan or make them sunburnt or any of that. We have public image, so this is going to be for the Get Famous expansion pack. If you don't have that, you're not going to have these options, but you know, we can add quirks, we can increase our celebrity level. Of course, I don't have any remove quirk or decrease celebrity levels or freeze frame because my sim's not a celebrity. He doesn't have any fame, so those are grayed out. But if I did have, you know, celebrity level or fame quirks, then those would also be available for me. And then you can also set your reputation, which reputation is going to be found in this menu here. And so my sim has a neutral reputation because I haven't actually played this household. This is just a test sim that I'm using for the purposes of this tutorial. But I can go to public image and set reputation. And let's say I want to set my reputation. So I just set my reputation to good. And I could also public image, set reputation to awful. And so now everyone's going to think my sim is evil, but I'm going to just return it to neutral. Public image, set reputation, neutral. Then we have marriage, so just like the other sim that I showed over there, we can clear his marriages if we want to. And that's pretty much it for the testing cheats. One last thing that does come in very handy with testing cheats is the teleport feature. So if I hit shift click really anywhere that's routable, so not just on my lot, but like within the neighborhood, any place that's routable. So like as far as way over here, I can shift click and select teleport here, and then if I press play, my sim just appears in the spot where I had him teleport to, and we can have him teleport over here, and there he is. So this comes in really handy. A lot of times I'm building and I don't want my sim getting in the way of what I'm doing, so I just teleport him off of the lot. Sometimes I'm taking cinematic shots of my build and I want my sim to be in a particular place and I don't want to have to wait while he climbs the stairs, or I want to get him out of my shot, and so I'll teleport him somewhere off the lot so that my sim isn't in any of my shots of my build. Another thing that this comes in really handy for is like in my legacy game when I couldn't get my sim to go up the stairs. There's currently a glitch with stairs that's it makes the game think that there's a railing across the top of the stairs, so your sims won't actually go up the stairs because they think that there's a railing there that they can't walk past. And I was on a community lot, so I couldn't go into build mode and fix the stairs. There is a fix for that, but I just had her teleport to the top of the stairs. So that's going to be about it for the testing cheats. I know that was kind of a lot, but I recommend that if you're using any other cheats, it's always a good idea to enter your testing cheats first, because some of these cheats are going to depend on already having entered testing cheats, and to be completely honest, I don't remember which ones do and which ones don't, so I always just entered that cheat before I enter anything else. The next cheat that I want to cover is probably the most commonly used cheat in the game. So usually whenever you pick up an item and you move it around on your lot, you're not going to be able to place it in the same square that already has an object in it, and in some cases you can't even really place it close to other items, which can be quite frustrating. So what you can do is Control-Shift-C to bring up your console, and you're going to type bb dot move objects space on, enter. And then you're going to get this message that says move objects cheat is on. That's how you know that you entered the cheat correctly. So if you don't get this message, type it in again, and then we're going to Control-Shift-C to make that cheat console disappear. And now when I pick up this chair, I can place it anywhere. I can have it intersecting the wall. I can place it in this counter for whatever reason. It can be placed anywhere. So that's the cool thing that move objects does. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but in Sims 4 you can press Alt while you have an item selected and it's no longer going to snap to the grid. And if I take my hand off Alt, it starts snapping again. You don't actually have to have any cheats enabled in order to do this, but a lot of people don't know that. So it's not really actually a cheat. It's just something that I think a lot of people, especially beginners to The Sims 4, may not know. And this comes in really handy. It has a lot of uses, as you can imagine. For instance, one thing that you could do is you could combine some items. So I could place this fountain here, and then I could maybe put in this additional fountain here, and now it's like one big fountain, right? And you know, maybe this isn't the best example. I don't think this looks very nice necessarily. Like I could probably come up with some better combinations. Or for landscaping, this is a really good example, because let's say I want to put a cluster of rocks here, but if I didn't have move objects on, then I really would only be able to place these rocks on completely separate squares like this. And that doesn't look very interesting, and it doesn't look very realistic, and it only allows for me to have these separate shapes. But I can create new shapes by placing these items together if I use the Alt key to combine them. So now I can do like this, and I have one large rock formation made out of several smaller ones. And so this is going to allow for you to have a greater amount of diversity in the rocks that you can use, and it's going to make it look a lot more realistic also. And you can do this with more than just rocks. Of course, you can do it with plants. So I can, you know, I can put these little flowers underneath this bush instead of having them out here next to it. So there's all kinds of things that you can do, and it's not just with landscaping, it's with pretty much all the items in the game. Now, another cool thing that we can do that really helps out with landscaping, but also helps out with a lot of other things too. Once I have an object selected, I can use the square bracket keys. If I hit the left bracket, it's going to make the item smaller, and if I hit the right bracket, it's going to make the item bigger. So this is a really simple way to vary the size of some of your objects in the game. You can make these objects pretty large, probably larger than you're ever really going to need them to be. And you can also make them pretty small. But you don't have a lot of control, like, you know, you can't really make this bush be between this size and this size. It's one or the other. Those are your limitations. But it does come in handy. To be able to place several of these items together in different sizes so that you have some variation, because like, especially for landscaping, you know, in real life, plants are going to come in varying sizes according to, you know, how old they are or just how well they're growing. You know, plants don't always look all exactly alike. So this gives you some variation in the way that your plants can look, and again, lends to a little bit more realism. Now, if you have the tool mod, which we're going to talk about mods in a different tutorial episode, but if you have the tool mod, then you have a lot greater variation in the way that you're able to resize things, and you can really make anything be pretty much any size you want, which is really great. And we're going to talk about that in a future tutorial, I promise. But going back to this over here, you know, I can actually shrink this down. But there is one thing that you'll have to remember, is that the item can be sized up or down, but if the item has an animation that goes with it, the animation is going to stay the original size. So you may not want to resize items that come with animations to them unless you're trying to keep the animation without the item being there. So like, see how this water looks, because the animation didn't size down to be lowered here, only the object was sized down. So that's also something to keep in mind. And this is true of any item that comes with an animation. So like fireplaces, for instance. And if the object is interactable, that's also going to pose some issues. So say I size down this couch, and we have these pillows floating here because we put those there in the previous tutorial. So if you want to know what that's about, just go look at the last tutorial before this one. But see, now I've sized this couch down so that it's tiny. But actually, my sim can still sit on this couch, but he's going to sit at the level that the couch originally was. See? Well, here's another one, these candles. So all candles come with the animation of the flame on the candle. So if I choose this candle and size it down, the flames are actually going to continue to hover there. And if I push play, the animation is going to continue up above these candles. So there are some items that you can't really resize unless you're being intentional with the placement of their animations. So keep that in mind. Another great use for this is like, maybe I want to put this art on the wall, but it's a little too big for my taste, so I can just size it down, you know? And don't forget, you can use the Alt key and move it around anywhere on the wall instead of having it snap into place. So there are all kinds of applications for the bracket keys, but keep in mind that that is something that you can do. You know, you can resize objects and just be mindful of what the animations are going to look like. Another cheat that, well, it's not really a cheat, neither is the bracket key, so you don't need to enter any cheat codes for the bracket keys or for this next thing that I'm going to tell you about, which is Control 9 and Control 0. So like with this chair, I don't know what reason you would have to want to raise or lower a chair, but you can do this with pretty much any item in the game. Is Control 9 to raise the level, and so now our chair is levitating. Or I can do Control 0 to lower the level, and when I use Control 0, it's only going to go as low as the terrain or, like, you know, the floor tile if I'm indoors. And of course, if you have the tool mod, then you're gonna have a similar tool to this where you can raise and lower objects, but you can do it in much smaller increments, which you know, just like we talked about with the bracket keys, is going to be very useful. So just like you can with the bracket keys, you can either use the bracket keys to size things up and size things down in these limited increments, or you can use the tool mod and have almost unlimited increments of sizing up and sizing down. And so likewise, you know, you can use Control 9 and Control 0 to change the elevation of objects, or you can use the tool mod and you have almost limitless increments that you can raise and lower your objects. So if that's something that sounds useful to you, then you're going to want to tune in for the next tutorial, which is going to be all about build mods. But we're only talking about cheats, and I guess we're talking about a couple things here in this video that are not necessarily cheats. You don't have to use a cheat code to use the bracket keys or to use Control 9 and Control 0, but these are things that people don't necessarily know about, just like they don't necessarily know that you can hold down the Alt key and you know, no longer snap to the grid. So we have 3 more cheat codes to go through, and these 3 cheat codes, I always enter them one right after the other because they all kind of act in tandem with each other, but there is a certain order that you're going to want to enter them in, and we're going to cover them in that order. So I highly advise that before you use any of the following cheat codes, you also go ahead and enter your testing cheats on and move objects on before you try any of the following cheat codes. I don't know which ones are dependent on which others, but if you enter all of them and you enter them in this order, then you shouldn't have any problems. So the first one, Control Shift C, brings up the cheat console, and we're going to type in bb.show hidden objects. Enter. Now for this cheat, you're not going to get any message saying that the cheat was successful, but in order to tell if it was successful, all you have to do is go into buy mode and look at your buy catalog and scroll down until you see items that you usually would not see. And you'll have to get past some of the comfort and surface objects before you see them, but if we continue scrolling, eventually, here we go. So these potions here are objects that I would have to create using gameplay, but when I put in show hidden objects, now I'm able to see them and place them in my game, even though my sim didn't actually create these items. This is also going to make these books show up, which normally you would have to purchase them from a bookshelf, or I think these specific ones, there might even be other ways that you have to get them, I'm not sure. Or like these familiar orbs are not usually in here, you have to get them through gameplay, but I can just place them because because I used show hidden objects. These objects from Strangerville are definitely from gameplay. If you don't enter show hidden objects, you're not going to be able to see these, but now I can just place them anywhere I want. And then all these craftable items are going to be available. So anything that's craftable is going to be available if you type in show hidden objects. And a lot of the other items you have to kind of like earn or win through gameplay. You're going to be able to find them in your catalog if you enable this cheat. And so there's more, and I'm not going to scroll through the entire menu, but I hope you get the idea that this is going to unlock extra items for you to use in your builds. So the next cheat is going to be bb.show live edit objects. Enter. And again, you're not going to get a message saying that it was successful, but you will be able to tell. Now, this one's a little bit tricky and it threw me off for a while, because if I go into objects by function, just as I did before, and I scroll through here, I'm not actually going to see the items that I just unlocked. And so for a long time, I thought that I was doing something wrong, or, you know, that my cheat code just wasn't working for some reason. And I was very, very confused. So I'm just scrolling through this to show you that, you know, I can still see my show hidden objects, but I'm not seeing any of the live edit objects. So what the live edit objects are, and see, here's like all the fish that are mounted that like I can put on the wall. So those are still more of the show hidden objects, but you're not going to see the show live edit objects. And what the show live edit objects are, they are basically items that are used in the creation of the world that exists around your lot. So like, you know, we have our lot that exists here, but we have this whole entire neighborhood. And for example, this home over here is not actually, or that one over there, both of these homes out here on the perimeter of the neighborhood, they're not actual homes. They're objects from the show live edit objects menu. And even though I entered this cheat, I can't see them in here. But if I go into the search bar and I type debug, and you're going to see all these different debug lists. As far as I can tell, they all do the exact same thing. So just click one. And now I'm seeing a bunch of debug objects that weren't already in my show hidden objects, but you can also see some of the live edit objects, like this house right here. This is not a house with actual walls that your sim can go into, but it's like a decorative object basically. So there's a ton of these little houses, and one of the really great things that you can do is you can get like the cars that you see, like, you know, when I push play, you're gonna have this road and you're gonna have cars that go up and down this road. I can access those cars in the show live edit objects menu, and I can put those cars on my lot. And your sims cannot drive these cars, but they are there to be used as decoration. So that's one really useful feature of the show live edit objects. Another one is you're going to be able to find a lot more like trees and plants and things that won't necessarily be found in your landscaping tools. So there's actually like a lot of extra plants that you wouldn't usually have access to. And another cool thing about this is a lot of these debug or show hidden objects or show live edit objects, a lot of them don't cost anything for you to place on your lot. So if you're building on a budget, this is a really great tool for you to be able to add detail to your lots and clutter, especially, and landscaping without having to use up a bunch of money on like decorative items that don't do anything. And so like here we have a lipstick. So like, you know, the spray bottle and the lipstick and stuff, and like this can, those are all objects that are from the debug menu or the show hidden objects. So those are all items that basically either you unlock using gameplay or your Sims only use for their animations. So like the spray bottle, you're gonna see your Sim use the spray bottle when they're like cleaning a countertop or something. They pull it out of thin air and they spray down the countertop and they wipe it down, and then the bottle disappears. And that bottle is not actually accessible as an item usually, but if you use the show hidden objects cheat, then you can use this as a decorative item in your builds. And so these items are not functional, but they can be used as decoration. And then your show live edit objects are going to be your like decorations that are used in the world around your lot, like in the neighborhood that's like not on a buildable lot. And so like even over here you see these rocks around the pond, those are actually a live edit object. These are some other really cool items that people use when they want to get like round or irregular shapes in their builds. They can use these little garden plots, and you can even like place landscaping items within them, which, you know, is really cool. And then we can, like we discussed before, use Control 9 to raise this, and we can even size it down if we want to with the bracket key. And so, you know, now we have all these new options for landscaping. So there's not really much of a rhyme or reason to the way these items are organized in here, but they are there. And this is another mod that we're going to talk about in the next video. But if you have Twisted Mexie's Better Build By, that's actually going to take all of these items and categorize them in your catalog for you, which is so very useful. So if you're like me and you use a lot of debug items or live edit items, you should probably go check out that mod, and we're going to cover it in the next tutorial. So we've talked about show hidden objects and show live edit objects, and those two cheats kind of go hand in hand, but there is a third cheat to unlock items to use in your builds, and that is going to be bb.ignore gameplay unlocks entitlement. Enter. And so for this one, once again, you're going to get the message saying ignore gameplay unlocks cheat is on, and that's how you're going to know. So for hidden objects and live edit objects, you really have to go in and look and see if they're available to know if you were successful in turning on that cheat. But for your gameplay unlocks, you're going to get a message just like you did with testing cheats and move objects. And what this cheat does is actually pretty simple. There are certain items that you can only place in your game if your sim has earned them, and it's usually either an aspiration reward or a career reward. So like this one, it says it's unlocked at level 9 of the detective career. Now this is my tutorial lot. This sim is a test sim. He does not have a career. I have not played him at all, but I can still place this chair even though it's not technically unlocked. Sorry, Control Shift C to make the console disappear. But I can still place this chair even though my sim has not unlocked it through gameplay because I used this cheat. So I mean, this comes in really handy because a lot of these items, you know, they don't actually do anything special. They don't have any unique animations. They don't like generate any new craftable items. Like there's so many, just chairs alone, there's so many that like they don't do anything special or new that you couldn't do with any other chair, except I think a lot of them probably have a higher comfort level, but they don't do anything special. They're just additional unique objects that you wouldn't otherwise be able to access. And so now if you enable this cheat, you'll be able to use these items that would usually have to be unlocked through like a career reward or an aspiration reward. So that's really the last cheat that I had to show you. It's really simple. I don't have much else to say about that one. So we're gonna call it quits with today's tutorial, but I hope you'll join me for the next one. And until then, or until the next video that you see from me, I hope that you'll be kind to yourself and be kind to others, and always remember to stay hydrated, and I'll see you next time. Bye.